This is the Barbados Today morning news for Tuesday, November 26. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary-Claire Williams. Former Quality Assurance Manager at the Transport Board, Sylvan Codrington, has told the Public Accounts Committee he knows nothing about 7 buses which were reported missing. But he maintains that one of the buses, which carries the registration number BM506 and which was reported missing, had in fact been sold, and another was at the Transport Board's Mangrove Depot. Chairman of the BAC, Reverend Joseph Atherley, read a report presented to the board by the former fleet consultant David Bartholomew at a meeting yesterday, and he said there was mention of 7 buses which were unaccounted for, but Codrington told the PAC that he had all of the relevant documentation pertaining to BM 506, and he said the sale was done before the audit and he did not know why the Auditor General was unaware of that transaction. Executive Chairman of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Juliette Bynoe-Sutherland, is giving assurances that nurses being recruited from Ghana will be paid on the same scale as their local counterparts. Government is on a recruitment drive of the healthcare providers, and the first group is expected to arrive here in January. Bynoe-Sutherland told reporters they are highly skilled and they will be paid according to their scale.
They're going to be having the same salaries and conditions of work as Barbadian nurses. And because I understand that's been, people have said that they're going to be paid different and better. That is not the case. That would be an industrial relations nightmare, as you could imagine. So that is not the case. They're being paid, there's a scale for nursing. And you go based on your years of qualification. If you come from the geriatric hospital or wherever, here you have a certain amount of years. It's a scale that's carefully worked out. So it will be a similar thing. There is no different or additional pay. What is I think different is that the nurses that are coming from Ghana will be getting a gratuity, which all contract workers at the hospital get, which is a gratuity instead of a pension.
Lawmakers are being warned not to allow the current economic climate to jeopardize the country's chances of having up-to-date information to allow for better decision-making at all levels. The warning comes from the Inter-American Development Bank's Chief of Operations for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Francisco Javier Ura. He was addressing the opening of the Caribbean Conference, Managing a Statistical Organization in Times of Change.
Barbados is in the moment of a macroeconomic complicated situation under an IMF program supported by the IDB and the CDB. And we discuss often, for instance, with Minister Cattle, where are then the necessity to make strategic choices about budget allocation. We at the IDB, and we have concluded, for instance, our country strategy with Barbados and the OECS region this year, we believe that undermining the capacity of a country to have solid and actionable data would be a terrible mistake. And in particular, the Caribbean region, and Barbados as an example, they perform relatively well by contrast with Latin America and the Caribbean in other areas, like can be, for instance, child education, alphabetization, modern that. But when we go to the data of statistics and the capacity of statistics, the Caribbean region are really going through a complicated situation.
A St. Philip family is searching for answers after one of their own was gunned down on Sunday night. Denzel Scarborough became the island's latest murder victim after a masked gunman entered the house where he was staying and shot him after an altercation. Kareem Smith has that story.
According to reports from the Royal Barbados Police Force's Southern Division, Denzel Obed Scarborough, 29 years, of Farm Road, St. Philip, was gunned down as he entered the side door of a house at Eastbourne, St. Philip, an area known by residents as Vietnam. Barbados Today now understands the residence is that of his 2-year-old son and the child's mother, 41-year-old Nico Aline, which he visited from time to time. Efforts to speak with Aline were unsuccessful as she was finally resting after enduring a sleepless night. A close relative and neighbor informed Barbados Today the incident occurred very quietly in the dead of the night when most people were sleeping. The source, however, was awakened by what sounded like someone reportedly killing a centipede with a shoe. Residents later found out it was the sound of numerous bullets piercing the head of Scarborough, leaving him dead on the scene at the residence of his 2-year-old son, a 4-year-old girl, a 21-year-old woman, and their mother. Residents, however, indicated they knew very little about the dead father, who they saw in the area sometimes. At his Farm Road home in the same parish, a middle-aged male answered the door, and while declining to identify himself, he indicated that none of Scarborough's family members were at home and he did not know the young man well. Next door, one woman denied knowing Scarborough well, but was shocked to hear of his passing. Reporting for Barbados Today, I am Kareem Smith.
The primary coordinator at the Substance Abuse Foundation believes the rising violence among young people is a manifestation of suppressed emotional turmoil. Alison Gottip says her client base is ranged from 18 to 35, but she gets the occasional 13 and 15-year-old. Addressing a recent panel discussion on the topic, Preventing Youth Violence, she said there are underlying causes to addiction and violent behavior which she witnesses.
We need to start digging deep and start to get real about what's really going on. We need to start looking at trauma-fueled addiction and all the other manifestations that go with it. Okay? So it's about getting real. And getting real means that we need to get our hands dirty. We need to start realizing that when we see a 13-year-old boy or a 17-year-old girl coming before us in whatever capacity, that they have a backstory. Right? So it's not a matter of them being hard ears. It's not a matter of them being slow and put them at the back of the class to do colouring at the age of 15. It's actually starting to allow them to have a voice and to start listening and engaging them in meaningful conversations.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Craft Center. Kick off the weekend this Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight with loads of food, drinks, and entertainment. Get ready for Crop Over with the Rhythm Roots Street Parade. Party like it's Kadooman Day on the street around Pelican Village with costume reveler, music, and more. It's Festive Friday. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Village Center from 4 p.m. to midnight. Admission free.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
In news from the region, the International Monetary Fund says Haiti is facing a grave political, economic and social crisis, and its short-term priorities should be to restore macroeconomic stability and tackle corruption. An IMF team ended an Article 4 consultation in Port-au-Prince, and head of the delegation, Nicole Laframboise, says in the absence of a formal budget submission to Parliament, it is critical that government prepare and publish a budget framework for 2020 as soon as possible. She noted that repeated protests and lockdowns in the country since mid-2018 have led to recession and high inflation. On the international scene, the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair says Britain is in a dangerous mess, and he believes neither his own Labour Party nor Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservatives deserve to win the December 12 election. We get more in this Reuters report.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has criticised both the main parties in the UK's upcoming election for peddling fantasies.
This is to treat people, like fools.
Speaking at a Reuters event on Monday, Blair took aim at both the ruling Conservative Party's pledge to get Brexit done and the opposition Labour Party's radical agenda to greatly increase the size of the state.
Both as majority governments pose a risk it would be unwise for the country to take.
Blair, who advocates a second Brexit referendum, said there was no chance of concluding a comprehensive deal with the EU by the end of the transition period next year, as promised in Prime Minister Boris Johnson's manifesto. And he said that made a no-deal Brexit much more likely.
So no-deal Brexit is not off the table, it's slap bang in the middle of it. And if the Conservatives mean their manifesto commitment to no extension past the end of 2020, it is the probable outcome. What it really means is throwing our economy off a cliff and hoping it finds a parachute on the way down.
Blair, a more centrist Labour leader than the current incumbent Jeremy Corbyn, said the opposition are promising a revolution.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook, and sign up for breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're on IZMU Media in bus terminals and screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good morning.